Welcome back to Around the Table with Stacy Smith as we're talking about the political scene, both nationally and locally. But right now, let's talk presidential politics for a moment. Despite polls that show most Americans would prefer to see candidates other than Joe Biden and Donald Trump on next year's presidential ballot, at this moment, it appears a rematch is going to take place between the 45th and the 46th presidents. So if that is the case, Keith, what will be the issues in next year's campaign for the presidency? Or is this just going to be a case of mudslinging between those two?
Well, I do understand the question, but I'm going to still start my answer by asserting the fact that I do not believe that President Biden will be standing for election. I think at some point he's going to step aside for another Democratic nominee. I think his advanced age and his obvious decline in physical and mental health will preclude him from serving the good people of the United States for another term. But that said, regardless of who the standard bearers are in the Republican or Democratic parties, or if there's a third party, in my opinion, the issues are so obvious now and we can agree upon them already because a lot of these issues aren't going away between now and next year. I think the fact that over 8 million people have crossed the southern border in the first 2 years and 8 months of his term is going to be an issue next year. I think the instability of the American cities with crime and homelessness and the ongoing collapse of the commercial real estate market has to be stared down. The world's on fire. We have to deal with Ukraine and the funding of Ukraine and the provocative situation involving Russia. And now the Middle East with no end in sight in the conflict there, which we think might eventually involve Iran. The ongoing tensions with China. And the fact that we have to protect our interests in the sovereignty of Taiwan. And then finally, just the debt. I mean, the ever increasing debt that we're carrying as the American people. And the fact that in recent times, because of inflation and economic concerns, the American people's relying on credit is the worst of any 3 years in American history. So we're leveraged beyond belief. And I think they're going to have to stare down all these issues in next year's presidential primary season.
You know, I agree with Keith that what he had said in a previous episode was that he didn't think either one of these candidates would be the candidates come the fall. Yep. But you know, if we're going to talk about a deteriorating mental state, you know, I turn my attention to Donald Trump. I mean, he's deranged. I have been rereading the speeches of Benito Mussolini lately, and you can't tell the two apart in large part. They use the same phrases, the same belittling of human beings, trying to take their humanity away. I think he's run off the rails. And I think that, you know, if it's that kind of matchup again, Joe Biden wins.
If we're sticking to the hypothetical that if it's the two of them, we have to inject the variable of the independent candidate or candidates. RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr., is likely to be an independent. A couple of days ago, Liz Cheney made an announcement that she may be thinking about doing it. And I would suspect that if she were to do it, she as well could meet the criteria and the requirements and the qualifications to also be a candidate. It's already showing through polling that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. takes more away from Donald Trump than Joe Biden. I suspect that Ms. Cheney would also take non-MAGA Republicans away who would never vote for a Democrat. Both of these create an advantage for Joe Biden. So Mr. Biden, between now and then, needs to do a better job of communication. I truly think if it's a matchup between the two of them, even one-on-one, it's still advantage to Joe Biden once people are starkly and sadly and tragically reminded of Mr. Trump on the national scene. When he starts spitting his venom again, people will remember what it was like, and they will not want to go back to that time in our nation's history. So I think it would still be advantage Biden. He needs to do a better job communicating effectively on what he has done. He needs to do better there. The DNC needs to get behind him on that, and the White House communication needs to do better. GDP is up. Go through it. Inflation zero. Robust wage. We're the strongest in recovery post-COVID of the G7. Median wealth is up over the last 2 years. The Dow's near an all-time high. Hit these points, own them, take pride in them, take credit for them. He needs to do that and start to do a better job of it.
The observation I have again is it's a long time before we get to the primary in Pennsylvania, and we could have a number of primaries before that. These two candidates would appear to be the candidates that will be going forward. But what I reflect upon is that this country is as divided as we've been probably in over 100 and some years, and it's a close division. Each side has equal number. Any event could cause a win for the other side over one. And you just don't know what that's going to be. Again, we're talking health in regard to the president. You could say the same thing due to the age of Mr. Trump. You never know what's going to affect those elections. That's why I think you see that the Republicans are having the debate last night, and they continue to do the debates. I think really they're doing it just in case something happens.
My question to folks is simple. Is anyone here in favor of canceling the United States Constitution? Now, that's what he said he wants to do.
Yeah.
And you can't write it off as the crazy musings of this guy who's, doesn't have any sense left. He does what he says pretty much. This isn't just campaign rhetoric. He pretty much does what he says. We saw that in his last term, and it'll be worse in his next term.
Well, although I'm 99% sure that he's not going to be a candidate for president, Mr. Biden, on the 1%, on the off chance, that 1% that my Democratic colleagues are right, and he's going to be the standard bearer, let me lob a bomb into the conversation. If that's the case, then he has no choice but to replace his vice president, the most unpopular vice president in American history. There is no way
I don't disagree with
an 83-year-old to office with her as vice president of the United States.
As an election matter, on a political matter, I can't disagree with that. She's extremely. The question is, though, what do you do? Where does she go? What do you do to solve this problem?
Right.
Unless there's a seat on the United States Supreme Court, I'm not sure what the next move is.
Ambassador Harris will do well next year. Keep an eye on Gavin Newsom, folks. In either hypothetical, whether Mr. Biden in that 1% is not the nominee, or whether Ms. Harris pursues some other career. What he did to Governor DeSantis on that debate, Governor DeSantis, he took him apart. Governor DeSantis is bouncing around in a room somewhere in that studio looking for the exit door still. It was something to see.
I want to ask our Republican friends, what was that all about? Why did DeSantis debate Newsom? I mean, for the life of me, I
didn't watch it.
Potential advantage.
I can't answer. I didn't watch it either. I haven't watched any of the debates so far.
Yeah,
it's how debates are supposed to be done. I advantage Governor Newsom, I think, but watch it, folks. Take a look and tell us what you think. But I mean, he took.
I'm going to have to now that you tell me this. I'm going to have to Google it and watch it.
Yeah, we're way over time here, but in answer to your question, Jim, I think it was set up when the thought process would be that Mr. Biden would not be the Democratic nominee and that Mr. DeSantis would be the Republican nominee, and Newsom appears with Sean Hannity on occasion, and Hannity put the invitation out and Newsom jumped on it. That's my take on it. I don't know if I'm right. I have no idea whether I'm wrong. It's a rare occasion I'm wrong, so I think I'm right. But anyway. All right. I do want to do another segment. It's another point down the road here about Vice President Harris and whether she will remain on the ballot. All right. We have to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.